Smith, I'd like to understand. Mr. Burnham says that he wants to bring stability back to British politics after years of leadership changes, saying we need to show the world that we can regain Britain's stability. We have not been good enough, we need to be better, he says. What should be his top priority in his first 100 days to convince people that his government will be different?
Omar, hello, and it's always a privilege to join you guys on Pakistan TV. Look, in a word, his priority needs to be delivering on his fine words. Andy Burnham is a very, very effective speaker. He's a far more effective speaker, for example, than was Keir Starmer, and he certainly emotionally connects with people. He does not emotionally connect with all people because, unfortunately, in the UK at the moment, we have a very divided country. And I will start off by saying it is Brexit over the last 10 years that has broken Britain. And in those same 10 years, we are now seeing our seventh prime minister for, a serious country, the fifth, sixth biggest economy in the world. This is simply not good enough. So, Andy Burnham inherits a huge challenge. His words are full of promise. I listened to his speech today, and he talked about giving breathing space to ordinary working people, and he talked about bringing down the welfare bill. However, on this, he has not told us yet. He said he will give us more detail tomorrow. He has not told us how he will bring down the welfare bill. The welfare bill, by the way, in the UK now exceeds every penny that the government collects in income tax. It is somewhere around the region of £360 billion a year. It was Lord George Robertson, former head of NATO, but also the author of the government's Strategic Defence Review, who said only a few months ago that we simply cannot afford to be spending this sort of money, £350 billion a year, on welfare, while at the same time neglecting our defences. Britain has slipped back to the virtually last place in NATO now in terms of government spending, and this has been a very, very sharp decline. So, I want to see him do something about welfare spending, but we wait to see what he will do. He has not suggested he's willing to make some very tough and unpopular cuts. He is suggesting that he can bring that bill down by bringing more people into the workforce and therefore off welfare and therefore paying taxes. But how he's going to do this, we wait to see.
I think we should wait and see. The way he has spoken today has gained a lot of optimism from people in the United Kingdom and of course beyond the UK as well. Well, Burnham has also already scrapped the 1.8 billion digital ID scheme. He has also said that the money should instead help people with the cost of living, just like you were talking about the huge expense that is being taken up by the British government as we speak. Is this a smart political and economic decision in your point of view, or does it create new risks?
Well, look, I would be among the people, and others will have a different view. I would be among the people that think we don't necessarily need this ID bill in the UK. We are a pretty well run society, but it is only 1.8 billion. And to give one example, the sort of figures we're talking about, he inherits a nearly £5 billion hole in the defence budget alone. Defence being my main area both of expertise and concern, because one, I am foremost a Ukraine analyst, but also I work with a group called Defence on the Brink in the UK, where we have been lobbying the British government for greater defence spending for over 2 years now. So, 1.8 billion is fine, but in the greater scheme of things, I mentioned a figure of almost 350 billion being spent on welfare. That's more than the government raises in income tax. 1.8 billion is very, very small money, and he needs to find much bigger savings, and he needs to find a real way of producing economic growth for the UK. And in the UK, for ordinary people, The wages for ordinary people have been effectively frozen in real terms for nearly 20 years. There are a lot of people really suffering in terms of cost of living, and not young people not being able to get on what we call the housing ladder and get themselves a home and move out from their parents. So yes, I support that 1.8 billion, but it's pennies in relation to what he needs to do.
Understand, but of course it's at least a step in the right direction. That is what how I would take it. Now also Burnham's biggest tests, a lot of analysts say, will be choosing his cabinet, especially the new finance minister. As you have also pointed, that finance is going to be a huge issue on how he's going to manage it. How important is that relationship in your point of view in restoring confidence in the economy and in the financial markets?
It's absolutely essential. And I am not going to try and make any predictions today because I simply don't have a crystal ball. And of course, the other position, which I think is essential, is who he is going to put into defense. And for me, that is going to say, that's going to tell me a lot about Andy Burnham, as it will who he puts into the other great departments of state here. But at a time when our world is less safe than it has been since 1945, certainly here in Europe with the Russian threat, and I was reading a piece only today from the former foreign minister of Lithuania, tiny country, but of course the Lithuanians, being a Baltic state, they really understand the Russians well. And he's talking about a very, very credible threat that within 2 or 3 months, before the end of this year, we could see a Russian invasion into either the Baltic states or Poland. Now, Britain is already involved there. We have 4,000 or 5,000 troops. There are 22,000 troops from other European countries stationed as a forward group in those countries. And if this happens, the shortfall in our defense, that's what he really must address first. I'm not sure that he's going to. But to go back to your question, who he puts into those key departments is going to tell us a lot about what his direction is going to be. And we're all waiting very, very keenly. In fact, there may even be announcements as I'm speaking to you, but we have been promised that we will have the cabinet by the end of this day.
So let's see, maybe in a few hours' time, we'll know who the new defense minister or who the new finance minister is going to be. Anyways, Andy Burnham, Mr. Smith wants to grow the economy through, a lot of early investment processes, stronger regional powers, and greater public control of struggling utilities like the Thames Water. Now, in your point of view, can this approach realistically deliver results while the United Kingdom is carrying high debt and slow growth?
Well, I'm not clear how it is. Growth comes from the private sector. It generally doesn't. The job of government is to create an environment where the private sector can thrive. And you talk about debt. I had a look at the figures before I came on. The British government is currently spending 8.2% of every penny it has to spend on simply paying the interest on our debt. That's 3.6% of our GDP. And the other factor, which I mentioned at the top of this discussion with you, and there will be those that will differ, but I have been firm of this opinion for 10 years. Brexit has broken Britain. And the most recent credible research to come out from the Office of Budget Responsibility, which is the government's own watchdog here, the cost of Brexit, they now think, is twice what they originally thought it would be. It is running between 180 billion and 240 billion pounds a year, making GDP between 6 and 8% smaller. Now, when you consider that the British government takes nearly 40 pence of everything we earn, that is a shortfall in possible tax of between 45 and 60 billion pounds a year that the government is not getting because of Brexit and because of cutting itself off from its largest market. And again, he has said some very He has said some very vague things about working closer with Europe, but actually, short of rejoining, the only two things that will really make a difference are rejoining the customs union and rejoining the single market. I'm not sure that Andy Burnham has the spine or the courage to actually grasp that nettle. I'm not sure any other politician in the United Kingdom has either. But, you know, I really want this guy to succeed because it's my country, it's where I live, and it's where I pay my taxes. So it's the country I've lived in for 40 years that I give my loyalty to. So I really want this guy to succeed. He sounds great. Look, part of what I do professionally is I train people in public speaking, and this guy is one of the best. But what we haven't seen yet is that crucial credibility that he is somebody who will do what he says. So I welcome the fact that there is a lot of optimism behind him. At 63, I'm a bit of a grumpy old man and a pragmatist. You know, I've been around the world a few times, so I remain to be convinced, as do many of my friends and colleagues and people that I speak to. But please don't misunderstand me. I really hope this guy works, because our country, the United Kingdom, can simply not afford another 2.5 years of mismanagement. And I have set out very clearly my assessment that this country has been mismanaged for the last 10 years, both by the current Labour government and by previous Tory governments and one Tory and Liberal Democrat coalition between 2010 and 2014, 2015. So, you know, I'm not being party political on this in any way. I guess
I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally understand your trust in Andy Burnham as well, and I totally understand how much you, as well as all of your countrymen in the United Kingdom, want him to succeed, want this government to succeed, so that the United Kingdom can come out of all the pressures that it has been building over the last few years and move in the right direction. But as Andy Burnham, Mr. Smith, has also said, that this is Labour's last chance to regain public trust. So let's hope that he manages to regain that public trust in the days, in the weeks to come. The first real test, of course, as you have yourself said, will be his cabinet that will be appointed by the end of the day. Thank you again so very much, Mr. Cormac Smith, to have joined us, to have given us your very frank opinion as to where things are moving along and what your expectations from Andy Burnham and his new government will be. Thank you again, sir, to have joined us. And as we say, till next time. Now, Pakistan has strong